Hey everybody, I have had the hardest time trying to get myself to do this video. I've done it about 3 times now, and every time that I watch it, I cannot get over all of the ums that I say and all the other little nuances that I have when I talk in camera, and I don't know how to edit videos, so this is either going to end up edited or it's going to end up as a straight shot. So we'll see how it goes, and I've already said so that's great. If you know who I am, then you know why you're here, probably. If you don't know who I am, I'll introduce myself in case you just found me flipping through YouTube. My name's Kristen, I'm 34. I'm a public health nurse, and about a week or so ago, or maybe 2 weeks ago now, it's been a while, I posted on my stories on Instagram and Facebook that I've been having some fertility issues that I've found out about, and I sort of just decided to let everyone know that I think this is something that's really important to talk about. I feel like it doesn't get talked about very often. My close friends and family who have known about it since I found out know that I'm not private about it, and I'm very willing to answer questions and talk about it. So I kind of figured I might as well share it with the world. And the more that people have found out about it, the more I've had women coming up to me and telling me their stories without me even asking about miscarriages, fertility issues, months of trying, years of trying, and it just seems so common. So I just really like to hopefully help somebody else by talking about my journey, and here's hoping that it ends up well so that somebody else can have some hope. I do want to give a disclaimer. There might be some overshares. I am a nurse, like I said, so I tend to overshare anyway, and if you are freaked out about I didn't want to know all this about Kristen, or freaked out about any kind of overshares in general, you might not want to watch these, because I'm probably going to be pretty honest about what's been happening. I'll give you a little bit of history about me. So I got married in November of this last year. It's now July, so I've been married several months now. I've been wanting kids my whole life, but actively really wanting kids since I turned about 30. So about a few years now I've been really wanting kids and feeling ready for kids. We started trying right after we got married, so we've been trying for several months now, and I've always had this weird feeling that something was wrong with me, and I have a few reasons why. This is where the disclaimer comes in. It might be TMI, just forewarning. So I've always had really heavy, really painful periods, and I didn't realize the extent of that until recently, talking to a few friends about what their periods are like and realizing that mine is just really out of control. So that made me wonder if, something was not right. I've also learned from pap smears throughout the years that I have a cervix that's tilted really far towards my back, and every time that they try to get a sample for a pap smear, they have a really hard time getting it because they can't even see my cervix back there. That, along with the wonky periods, made me kind of suspicious, but the other really big one was that I have never been pregnant. I've never accidentally been pregnant. And I know that if you're being careful and you're using protection and everything, you could have evaded it this far up till age 34, but there are so many stories of people getting accidentally pregnant, being on birth control and getting pregnant anyways. So those 3 things combined made me think that something might be going on, and that's pretty much, yeah. So about a month into trying, since we started right away after getting married, I was already panicking. And the first month after we started trying, when I got a negative pregnancy test, I kind of freaked out and assumed the worst. About a month after that, I ordered a test online from Modern Fertility to test my hormones. It's like a mail-in kit where you give them a blood sample, and it's just a finger stick and drops of blood on a card, and you send it in, and they give you results pretty quick. If anyone has been wanting to check their hormones, that's a great way to do it. So I did one of those. It came back in the mail. My hormones were balanced. Everything looked good. So that made me feel a little bit better. But I decided I would schedule an appointment with my doctor and just talk to her about it and tell her that I was nervous. So I had a telehealth visit with her and told her that I was already panicking. This was about 3 months in. And she offered to order me more blood work just in case I wanted to check it again. And she also offered to order me an HSG, which I had never heard of. I'm gonna try to say it. It's hysterosalpingogram. Basically, they stick a catheter up your cervix, inject contrast, and then they watch over x-ray live to see if that contrast is going through your fallopian tubes, and it's supposed to tell you if your fallopian tubes are open or closed. So she ordered that for me, and lots of times fertility places or OB won't want to go into those kinds of tests until you've been trying for a year. Typically, if you're under 35, they don't want to order tests like that unless you've been trying for a year. And if you're 35 and over, they'll want to check after you've been trying for about 6 months. So she was very, very generous. Shout out to my doctor. I'm never going to leave you. I'm going to be with you for the rest of my life. And she knows that I'm pretty anxious, and so she agreed to order it. Scheduling was a whole nother issue because my period is pretty regular. It always starts within a few days of the same time every month, but I never know the exact day that it's going to start. So scheduling was difficult because you have to have the HSG scan within 7 to 10 days of the first day of your last period. So I would have to wait every month till my period started and then try to call and schedule at radiology. So I was calling 2 different radiology places trying to schedule this, and they were having trouble fitting me in because it was short notice. So finally, after 4 months of trying to schedule, I couldn't get on the schedule again. And I told one place, this is never really gonna get any easier for me to try to schedule with you because I never know when my period is actually gonna start, and I always have to call on the first day. And I'm just really anxious about this, and I want to get in and get it done. And so they were able to get me in that cycle. Went in, gowned up. They put a catheter into my cervix, and right off the bat, when they put the catheter up, it kind of went hard to one side. And they needed it to be more straight, and so they decided they were gonna have to try to do it again. So they pulled it out, and then they had to stick it up there again. That was fun. Once they got it up there the second time, it did the same thing. It went to one side. So they told me that I may or may not have an oddly shaped uterus. In the live x-ray that was going on when they put the contrast in, it started to go up one side and the other side looked to be blocked. So the side it was going up, they told me looked kind of enlarged. And that was pretty much all that they told me that day. So I followed that up with going to an OB to discuss the results. The results had come out before I went to the OB, of course, as they often do. So then I was able to look up all these terrifying things on the x-ray report and panic about what was going on. So on the x-ray report, there were a few different things that I looked up. One of them said possible bicornuate uterus. Pretty much means that your uterus has a septum down the middle of it, so there are 2 sides to your uterus. That made me a little bit nervous, but just from Googling, I saw a lot of different things telling me that lots of women get pregnant with a septum in their uterus anyways, and the embryo just implants on 1/2 of your uterus. And the only complications that might happen are, depending on how bad it is, you could have miscarriages, and that would explain why could lead to preterm birth because it's a smaller area, and also can lead to C-section because there's not as much room in there for the baby to turn upside down at the end towards birth. So wasn't sure how to feel about that. The other side being blocked, I wasn't too concerned about because I knew one side had appeared to be open. However, the side that appeared to be open on the report said consistent with hydrosalpinx. Looked up hydrosalpinx, and from what I understand, I'm not an expert, it looks like it's pretty much an enlarged and inflamed fallopian tube. You can have it on one side like I do, or you can have it on both tubes, and it's filled with a fluid that is toxic to anything trying to survive in there. So that fluid backs up from the tube into your uterus, and then nothing can survive in your uterus. So typically what they do for hydrosalpinx is remove your tube or tubes if you have it in both sides. So I was kind of expecting they might want to remove my tube, and that's basically what the OB said to me at the appointment. I think he was prepping me for the worst. He told me that rather than doing any further testing or images, he would rather send me to a fertility clinic right off the bat, and he told me that any tests or imaging that he would do, the fertility clinic would probably do anyways, and they would do it better. So he referred me to a couple of different ones, and I tried contacting both to see which one I could get into sooner. I was able to get into one in about 2 weeks, so that was really, really good wait time for a specialty. Specialties can have wait times for months. Went to the fertility clinic with my husband, whose name is Chris, for a future reference, about 3 weeks ago or so, and they made it seem like it was all just a walk in the park, like another day at the office, which gave me a lot of confidence. They told us that it was a little bit difficult to decide whether they would need to take out the septum in my uterus. And I should explain what that is a little bit more. So the septum, when I first heard it, it sounded like it was a big divider of, normal flesh. But looking up the surgery for septum removal from your uterus, it kind of looks like scar tissue, like fibrous white tissue. It's non-vascular, so there's no blood flow to it. So in the surgery, they kind of just go in with some scissors, snip away at it, and open the whole area up. So it's a pretty simple surgery. I read that it can be about an hour, and it's an outpatient surgery. So nothing too crazy, which is good news. The fertility nurse practitioner gave us some other good news. She told us that I would most likely would definitely have to have my hysterosalpingogram tube removed, assuming that is what it really is. And it's all hard to tell what exactly is going on from the HSG imaging. It gives you a picture, but not a super clear picture of what's happening. So she told me that we would definitely have to take that out because nothing would survive regardless, if that tube stayed in with the fluid not allowing anything to live in there. So tube's gonna be removed, possibly septum be removed, and then nobody knows what's going on with the other tube, but it's blocked. So that tube could be blocked by scar tissue from undiagnosed endometriosis, or the way that the OB described it to me, when your uterus has a septum, kind of like this with two sides. When your body's developing, everything's in two sides, and then it kind of fuses together and opens up. So your uterus kind of comes together and opens up. And to have it with a septum in the middle is a congenital anomaly. So he said with that, lots of times comes a congenital anomaly with your fallopian tubes as well. So your tubes kind of form the shape, and then the last step is that they pop open. So He said since I have that septum in my uterus, it wouldn't be unlikely that my tube that's blocked has just never been opened, which means it's not scarred shut from any sort of damage. It just possibly was never open in the first place. More good news that the fertility nurse practitioner said to me was when we do IVF, which we will most likely have to in this situation, the good news is that we will be extracting 34-year-old eggs from your 34-year-old self. And the nice thing about that is that there's less of an issue with your body being able to host a baby, and the issue is more with the declining quality of eggs. So she said even if we got you pregnant at 40, you would still have 34-year-old eggs. So nice, younger, healthier eggs, which is pretty awesome. Science is blowing my mind with this whole process. So the loose plan is going to be to extract some eggs, do surgery. While we were at the fertility visit, Chris also had a semen analysis. I did check with him to see if I could announce these things on YouTube publicly. So he had a semen analysis, and they did a blood test on me to check for recessive genetic traits that might cause issues with pregnancy. They checked for about 300 traits or so, which is also pretty cool. And then they did a transvaginal ultrasound on me to get a visual of my ovaries, which they were able to get. They told me that my hormones were all balanced and looked great, and that will probably help me get pregnant in the long run. And then they scheduled me for another visit in a month, which is going to be a week from now, that we go back. And I'm hoping that we can lock down a surgery date or a date for next steps. So my feelings about all of this, I feel okay about everything. When I first found out, I had a rough time. I found out right before Memorial Day weekend. It's now the end of July, so a couple months ago. And I had a really rough weekend of crying, sleeping, feeling very hopeless. But I tend to think absolute worst initially, and then I kind of recover, and I'm not great at giving up. So I'm feeling okay at this point. I feel like I have processed things and kind of dealt with things mentally, and I'm kind of just ready for the next steps. It is hard, definitely. It's hard to see. I see babies a lot at work, friends with babies, pregnant friends. It is really hard, but I just feel like being angry about it or sad about it won't help me at all. It's gonna make me feel worse. And if I allow myself to think this isn't fair, how could this happen to me? That would imply that the universe is out to get me, which just isn't true. So feeling pretty okay about it. I have a lot of confidence in science. I have to have a lot of confidence in science. I'm a nurse. So hopefully you guys won't find my videos too annoying. And this was a long one because it's the initial explanation of everything. Hopefully you'll want to come back and follow my journey, and I'll let you know what happens next. Thanks for watching.